the infamous Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde from James, the angry video game nerd himself. I want to talk about my remake, I want to talk about the sequel that I have done to it, and everything in between. So this, of course, is my original cartridge that I had autographed from James. This was one of the very first videos that he ever did, and I thought it was hilarious. It's so low budget, it's so old school YouTube. I don't know, there's something funny about that. He's talking about nostalgic video games, except that those actual videos that he made are themselves nostalgic now. So my inspiration, it was one of the very first video games that I ever played. He's totally my inspiration for it, because I was thinking, if I could remake a game, why don't I remake a pile of dog vomit better than it ever was before? And of course, it was my very first game, so my imagination is going wild with it. I didn't really have a total clear path of what I wanted to do with it. So that's why when you play Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde Returns, it is a sequel to the original game. But I've just gone completely wild with it. I've gone overboard with it. There's so many different things from different video games, classic video games, that I implemented into it. It's almost like a Frankenstein of a video game. So in the beginning, your bride gets captured by essentially the devil. But I know you can already tell the story sounds familiar already. There's lots of stories that already covered that the princess always gets captured by someone, but this one was more like, I think, Ghosts and Goblins in a way, because the princess gets kidnapped by Satan or something like that at the beginning, right? So it's close to that. But what I like about it is that the sequel, my sequel, picks up right after the ending of the original, because in the original, when you ended it, you got married. That was the whole sole purpose of the game, was to make it to your wedding and to get married. But right when you're getting married, she gets kidnapped by the devil. It shows the story at the beginning. And then the game kicks off, and it's just pure action-packed adventure after that. Because let me tell you, there's so many things to talk about here, okay? So I mentioned Ghosts and Goblins, so I would say the core of the game is like that. You climb up and down ladders just like Ghosts and Goblins. You shoot your weapons now, because I was like, one of the biggest complaints in the original was you had your cane or your staff and it didn't do anything. It literally did nothing. I think it killed bees, but that was it. So I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm just gonna take that and ramp it up to 1,000. Now there's just tons of weapons in the game. You can get these Molotov cocktail bombs, and you can get daggers and axes and swing maces and giant battle hammers and all sorts of other weapons you can get in the game. Then I wanted to make it, well, I hated it where there's certain aspects of when you get hit a certain amount of times and your anger meter goes down in the original. It's very convoluted on, how to understand how the game works. In mine, I wanted to make it where when you transform into Mr. Hyde, like the original one, I didn't want to make it a downgrade, because that's kind of what it was in the original one. You were penalized for that. I wanted to make it an upgrade. I'm like, Dr. Jekyll, he's stronger. He's like the Hulk. He's like transforming into the Hulk, right? He's like almost like a superhero or supervillain, whatever you want to say. So what I did was, because Dr. Jekyll is a scientist and he's got his potions, and this is how the story goes with him, and how he does it in the movies too. So I had these Hyde potions, I like to call them, and they're hidden all over the stages in all these different secret blocks that you can shoot. And if you get it, you will transform into Hyde, and you'll be just uber powerful after that. All of your weapons will be upgraded to something more special and more powerful, bigger, badder, bolder than the original weapon that you had, but still based off of it. Then after that, the more enemies that you kill is going to increase your power meter or your Jekyll meter, whatever you want to call it, in the corner. And when that reaches the top, it's going to start flashing. That's going to give you a super crash move that you can use whenever you want, or super duper Edward Hyde move, and it's random, so he could shoot these huge electrical zapping bolts out of him, or he could have these humongous swords raining down, what do you call them, the swords of Damocles or whatever, rain down from the sky, or he can transform everything on the screen to ice, and then you can shatter them. So it's just a great way of, if the screen is getting too convoluted with enemies, you got this big crash move that you can use on them. I thought it was pretty rad. Now, a little homage to Mario was I wanted to make it where you can actually jump on people's heads. So there are certain enemies, such as the bombers, that you can jump on their heads and you can squish them like a Goomba. It doesn't really make any sense why it's in the game. It technically shouldn't even be in the game, but it's there, and you can hear some sound effects that you may recognize from other games as well, such as when he jumps on the head sounds like a kick from Street Fighter. And I even took some sound effects from memes and famous memes online. Remember the crackhead kid? I actually took the crackhead scream of that kid and put it in when you kill the little Billy boys with their slingshot. I know, I'm nuts. I was crazy when I was making this. I was just so excited. And then, of course, I mentioned the hidden bricks that you destroy. That's kind of like Castlevania's hidden bricks. And then there's bosses at the end of every single stage that you have to defeat. Now, James himself and Mike actually did play the game. There is a video on their channel that you can watch that's absolutely hilarious. They could barely pass the first stage. I didn't know. This was the first game that I ever made, okay? So balancing was not my forte at the time because I was just making the game for me. But as a creator, you got to think now ahead. You got to think if the game is challenging for me, the creator, it's going to be damn near impossible for anyone else to actually play it. That's one thing that I learned right away because they were having really tough time with it. And I think I actually edited the game and updated it to bring the difficulty down. I don't even know how many times. I think 9 times or something like that. People just kept saying, it's too hard, it's too hard, it's too hard. I even made Mike Matei himself lose his stuff when he was Twitch streaming the game online. He freaked out, he rage quitted, and I think that in myself is a personal victory for me to make, because Mike has been known, he's got this reputation for playing these very, very difficult games. I mean, he ended the original one, for crying out loud, on a stream, and that's no small task. So him not being able to end my game and rage quitting it, I think is a W for me. Now, every single time you pass a stage, it's going to grade you, and if you get a certain grade, depending on how many hits you took, how many potions you got, how many enemies you killed, it's all calculated together. You will earn a free man, or you can, just challenge yourself to get a better grade after every single stage. So it's still a fun game. It's probably still challenging. Like I said, I've tweaked it so many times to try and make it easier. Just less difficult, but I don't know, it's probably still a hard game. I don't really know, but hey, that's where you come in. You know why? Because for a limited time only, I am going to give you this game absolutely no charge whatsoever. All you got to do is email me at r3games1985@gmail.com, and I will transfer you the link to Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde Returns, the sequel. You play it, you give me the feedback, you tell me whether or not what you would like to change in it or what you think is absolutely ridiculously too difficult, and maybe I'll go through it and update some of the stuff. But hey, it's not really even about that. It's just about me giving back to you guys. I'm getting good subscriptions, I'm getting fantastic views. I am a generous guy and I want to give you this game. I want you to play it. So all you got to do is email me there. Here it is again, down below. Email me here and I will give you the link to it. And that is it for now. So again, thank you very much. And if you want to see another game that I created, click over in this box over here. And if you would like to subscribe and see more content about more retro games I'm going to play and even more games that I made myself, then subscribe by clicking over here. And enjoy the rest of your day.